think that anything outside the 51 acres, including leaching pipes, roads, retention ponds, that is done in such a way that it allows the capacity inside the landfill to expand to the outer 51 acres limit is unfair. I believe, in my interpretation of the rules and the laws, that when the Supreme Court said that the landfill could be 51 acres, they meant all-encompassing, including retention ponds, including retaining walls, including everything. And until you can provide me with something that proves otherwise, I don't know why you always rule in NCES's favor to let them expand to the outer perimeter, which is what, if you look at the pink map, you're doing. You're allowing the burn to go right up along the 51 boundary in multiple places, sometimes with little setback, sometimes with no setback. All of this, to me, is a gross exploitation of the intent of the Supreme Court ruling, and a gross exploitation of a company trying to force their landfill to be as big as possible, to make as much money as possible, and with no discretion towards us. We have been bombarded with lawsuits. We have been attacked when we run for office by people that are pro-landfill with libelous information. We have gone through so much, and it hurts, and it's, we need the empathy that Don requested. I want to point out maybe one last detail and try and come to a conclusion because it's awful late. And that is, you know, I talked to an attorney that specializes in law and environment and permits, specifically in this type of case. And he quite clearly pointed out that yes, it was pretty much impossible to retract the permit from 03 because of the laws, and it would have been a very difficult case to win. But he pointed out that in this case, and at this point right now, as NCES Casella is trying to expand, it's a whole different situation. They have the burden to prove that it will be safe. They have the burden to prove that the leaching pipe should be outside the 51 acres. They have the burden to prove that the burn is a tangible, feasible, and safe idea. They have the burden to prove that the original permit and this permit included doesn't violate the public's benefit and isn't dangerous. Now, in your whole beautiful presentation, you didn't mention once that you were going to do excavation in order to accomplish what you need to do. You're going to excavate I believe seven leachate tanks. You're going to excavate down to liners, which is very difficult to do without tearing them when they're already subject to, when they're already delicate apparatus. There's a whole component of danger here that was never conceived of when that permit was originally done in 03. So not only is this whole logic of flopping it over like pancake outrageous, this whole idea of expanding with doing what is obviously, to even a layperson, much more complicated structure, is to me, the whole concept here on both those levels is outrageous. And again, I look to be able to thank this department for looking out for us like they did when they asked that the burns come inside the 51 acres. I look forward to thanking them again. I hope that we don't come off as rabid, but we have suffered a lot, and I can only hope that something better comes out of your department in the future. I want to close by saying that there was a real temptation to say that we don't feel like you're responding to us and walk right out of here. A lot of people suggested it, and I was tempted right up into this moment to suggest it. Because, you know, how do we send that message? No, nothing we've done so far. The complicated emails that we've gotten responses to have gone largely unanswered, and when they are answered, they don't provide clear insight. So here I am having to study all these details, and we get responses about the latitude and longitude which are valid questions, and they are completely vague and ambiguous. I would hope for more. I was tempted to say that we should all walk out, but I think it's more important that you get the clear message, so I'm not. And thank you for your time.
Earlier there were some questions about smells and what might be expected. Like Seth, I found it interesting that while we were learning about the virtues of the burn, so really there's no discussion of the excavation that's going to take place. And then in answer to the question the board raised about, is this stuff going to really smell? The answer is, maybe it might smell a little bit. Actually, last year, NCES filed a work plan to talk about that excavation. And way in the back, under the safety section, it says, quote, excavation and relocation of waste is anticipated to result in the release of potentially obnoxious and nauseating odors. Then it goes on later, it says, air quality degradation, potentially flammable gas, gas emissions, and noxious odors and nauseating odors may occur during the execution of the work due to the decomposition of waste. There's more. It says decomposition, quote, may generate landfill gases such as methane, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. Excavating and regrading waste may also create dust, which may contain trace concentrations of metals or organic compounds, close quotes. There are some other delights listed. It also notes that, quote, stormwater runoff may contain residual compounds resulting from contact with wastes in the landfill, close quote. So, now that we know that it actually is going to stink and there may be other bad things involved, I wonder if somebody from NCES or DES can explain how do you go about controlling odors and problems on a scope like that? I mean, it's not as easy as giving everybody a little Christmas tree air freshener. I mean, how do you handle that? And why don't we know that if this application is in fact complete?
As part of the Stage 4 Phase 1 project 2 years ago, there was 2 large waste excavations that took place for that project. During that project, there was several tools in the toolbox, if you will, that we used for that project, and we're going to apply those similar tools to this if this waste excavation takes place. In that toolbox was different agents that neutralize odors, using big water cannons to water down the material as it's being removed. Cover to cover the material at the end of the day. Applying soils at the end of the day. Putting extra methane extraction wells and horizontal wells within the waste itself. If it's going to be excavated to this point, we put collection farther back, so you have to put vacuum below or behind that waste excavation. So there was a lot of thought and there was a lot of attention put towards the odor controls. We have portable misters, maskers that mask an odor. As that application says, we cannot guarantee that there won't be odors, but we do take a lot of precautions, and we are committed to not emitting odors.
Well, Debbie says that she has terrible odors now, and you're not doing this excavation on nearly the scale that you're anticipating. Why should we believe that? And where is this plan written? Is this plan all written down and filed somewhere with DES?
The odor control for this excavation it's in the application, I believe.
Okay.
And again, we are committed to that odor control. She said the prevailing wind goes towards her house 90% of the time. That's not a true statement. I'm not saying that she doesn't have odors at times. I don't know recently when she called and made a complaint that the weekend of the past weekend.
In the case of particularly unfriendly things like hydrogen sulfide, what's the plan to warn the town or at least the people who live nearby?
The hydrogen sulfide issue has been increasingly reduced because we stopped using the ergo lines. So those levels through the TRS sampling in the header lines, those numbers have gone down. And during the excavations, there are, as mentioned by the DES, that there are standards and there are protocols that the contractor must follow. And one of those is the monitoring systems that they use to monitor for those specific gases.
Right, and you would notify the people who live nearby now?
I don't know if that's actually in the plan.
Well, all in all, you got your plan, there are all the discussions about the berm, and is the berm going to be engineered well enough? And actually, you know, it's a fairly simple thing. This is a plan that you do not have to approve. You don't have to gamble with any of these things. And I would hope that you don't.